Hey guys, so today on the podcast we have Eric Richardson. Eric has been a good friend of mine for a long time, and I wanted Eric on here specifically because he has a uniquely creative view of magic. It's respected by many of the best magicians in the world, such as Michael Vincent. I was going to say myself, but hey, I really respect him, but wouldn't really call myself the best magician in the world, or even close to one of them. Still an eternal student. Anyway, Eric has a uniquely creative perspective on magic, and scripting is something that keeps blowing my mind. And so in this episode, we're really diving into the difference between art and craft, but also how craft helps you to get closer to actually making art, and what the steps are that you should take in order to get there. I think you'll get a lot out of it. I really enjoyed having this conversation. So with that being said, no further ado, let's get into the podcast with Eric. And we're off. We're flying to the moon.
Yeah. Houston, the eagle has landed.
All right, Eric. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Really looking forward to doing this one. It's been planning for a long time.
Yeah. I'm glad we finally are able to get it.
Screwing it up for a long time as well.
It's all right, man. It's great.
So, also one of the reasons why I wanted you on the podcast was because the podcast is called Beyond the Method, as you can see at the top of the screen. But the idea of Beyond the Method is sort of like, I believe that magic is way more than just like you doing a card trick and going like, oh, do you know this best way of doing a double lift? And I mean, of course you need good technique, but it also gets to a point where it's like, there are so many inspirations you can take outside of magic to put inside of magic. And I feel like you've been doing that very well. Like, for example, with like the session swag you've been making every year. And you so generously send over to me sometimes when I cannot make it to the session.
Yeah, the secret swag.
The secret swag. So if you're listening to this and you go to the session, find Eric,
Yeah.
He might.
I have one.
Swag,
I have one for
not.
this year too. I have one in the works.
Oh,
so
damn.
Something new.
Okay. So, like, for example, because I really enjoyed the one with the, I'm blanking on the name now, but like with the sort of the tarot cards, but they're not tarot cards.
Oh, that would have been, the concoction from the concoction one. Yeah.
But I also
on the theme of the witch trials. Yeah.
Yes. But I also really enjoyed the, what was it? Like you had like the shell, right? And like the idea of like the trick you usually would go like with the 50 cent and the €2 coin, for example.
Oh,
like the Jim Berger used to do, and I think he did it with like a seashell and something else.
Yeah, and an acorn and a snowflake and stuff. Yeah, that was Wanderlust. And so that's still floating around out there. I'll probably have some copies of that with me as well. But at the next session.
Where did those ideas like come from? Like for you to go, you know what, I want to change the effect from being like this to be like this.
Yeah. For me, it really had to do with kind of an artistic journey. Probably a little bit longer than that, maybe 13 years ago or so. I just started making some really significant changes in how I was approaching my magic. Before that, I had already started a little bit, but I got really serious about that about 13 years ago. Now, I've been into magic since I was about 13 years old, and I'm 53 now. So
long time.
I've been in magic a long time, and I've been performing for a long time. I spent there's a 20-year period there where I was working a lot of restaurants in Florida and then West Virginia, several times a week for a couple hours a night, things like that, and doing shows and library shows and all private stuff. And for about 8 or 9 years, I spent pretty much I wasn't 100% professional like full time, but it was a considerable part of my income was coming from doing shows and the restaurants and everything. And, at some point, I think for most magicians who are outperforming, you start to go, what am I doing? I'm doing fine. I'm entertaining. I'm doing strong magic, getting good reactions. People are hiring me, rehiring me, that kind of stuff. But so people are pleased, but at some point I realized, you know what? I'm kind of just like just doing trick after trick after trick, kind of how they're, you know, I mean, sometimes I would add my own presentations and stuff and have some creativity there, but then it was kind of like, you know, I'm just like every other magician, and am I
So
really
you
approaching
were like a
this?
cover band in some way.
Yeah, yeah, you know, it's just like, okay, well, what differentiates me from any of the other magicians out there, or a large
Mm,
number of magicians? And so I started really thinking more about that. You know, I'd always wanted to be original and, you know, creative, and I'd come up with some tricks, and, you know, I've written some books, you know, on the, some card, mostly on card tricks and
mhm.
stuff like that.
Yes.
But, but I was like, you know, I really want to spend a little more time thinking about this in a more intentional way. And like, am I going to be, do I want to be an artist, or do I just want to be like, and take that seriously? Or do I just want to like be the guy that just does magic tricks, you
Mm,
know, and does them well and entertainingly and all that, hopefully. But, you know, what am I doing? And how do you balance that with being commercial too? Right.
mm.
So, because I still want to, you know, be able to go around the restaurants or do different
Make
things
make make money. Yeah.
and make money, right? So you do have to consider, okay, you have art and you have the need for being commercial, and how can I
Mm,
fit those two things together? And can you fit those two things together? And of course, I think you can. So I started on a little bit more of a introspective kind of journey, like what is art? What is magic? Is magic art? Is it a
mm,
craft? Is it art? And all of those kinds of things. And to make a long story short, I really gave a lot of thought to those things and came to some hard conclusions about some of that, and was like, you know, I'm going to follow this path and see where it leads.
mm,
And, you know, kind of like Andy Warhol's, you know, I'm not going to say his quote, I don't have it memorized, but my understanding that Andy had a quote is kind of like, go make art and people can decide if they like it or not. And while they're trying to figure out if they like it or not, keep making art, you know? And I thought, you know, I, I, I want to apply my creativity and try to do something that is more artistic and more in line with some sort of cohesive idea. Um, Instead of just doing trick after trick after trick,
mm,
whatever I just like, you know. Um, and so that's a different path, you know. And not to say there's anything wrong with being in that other lane, you know, fine, you know, there's nothing
mm,
wrong with that. But I wanted something different. So of course the first thing I had to do is settle that question: is it a craft or is it art? Am I even an artist? Can I be an artist by doing magic, you know?
mm.
And and so my conclusion very quickly was that craft is the vehicle that allows you to do art. So yeah, magic's a craft.
Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, it's a craft in that there's skills you have to learn and master, methodologically, then presentationally to theatrics, just the general presence on stage and how you move and how you present yourself in a theatrical setting, all of those kinds of things, the words you say, your scripting, your
Mm,
dress, all of that stuff. That's all part of the craft of it, right? And you need to achieve a high level of skill in those things to be able to perform at all, right? But um but that's just the craft. And so, but then there's art, and art's different because I think a good kind of, I mean, everyone's like, oh, no one can define art. So I'm not going to pretend I'm defining art, be all in this, you know, the ultimate answer here. But I just, for me, pragmatically, I think a very pragmatic, workable definition that kind of gets to the core of it is that people create art to express their own self, their
mm.
emotions, their thoughts, their ideas, and to communicate those to other people in an effort to have other people feel something
Yeah.
or
Mm,
think something, right?
mm,
So that's what's going on with art, even advertising art, you know, like
mm.
for a cereal box, you know,
Yeah.
that's not random, right? Now the artist is maybe doing that to get a paycheck, you know, and it's just the boss told me to do something with Count Chocula, so I got to make it happen. by 5 o'clock, you know, he needs a draft on the desk. But still, there's something being communicated by art, right? So, and for someone who's creating their own art, and they're not doing it because some, you know, boss is telling them what to make or something, then they're expressing themselves, something about how they see the world, and they want other people to feel something in relation to that when they
But
experience that art.
yeah, that's
So
also interesting.
So to me, art, magic is a craft, but it's a craft that the purpose of the craft is to create art, right? It's the vehicle, it's the tool for creating art. And so, you know, the other basic premise I came to once I kind of solved that was for myself, you know, that's kind of the answer that I was like, I can work with that. That's a practical understanding of those things that I can move forward with that, you know. Not saying it, you know, covers every little nuance of everything anyone could ever argue about a craft or an art. But for me, I'm just as a pragmatist, I'm like, what's going to move me forward? This understanding that craft is going to help me do art. Okay, well, that kind of puts it all in a world that I can understand, right? So, all right. So the next thing for me, I know this is a really long answer to your simple question of how do you come up with that trick, you know, but this is the answer.
We got
really.
a long time, Eric. You got those little earphones. So.
All right. Yeah. So I think that, so craft is a vehicle for creating art. That's great. I think the other thing that hit me, and I've written about this in like the concoction book that we referenced earlier, is the idea that I came to terms with the understanding that every time I perform, and I believe this is true for anyone, I think this is kind of a universal, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is kind of a universal truth, but anyone who's performing, they're communicating something, whether they doing it intentionally or not. When you stand before an audience and you do anything, you are communicating something about yourself, about what you're talking about or presenting or whatever. So if that's true, and I think it is, then why would I not be intentional about that? Why would I let that opportunity pass by and not take advantage of it and go, oh, wow, I am communicating something to these people. What's the best way to do it? And I'm not just talking about like scripting or finding just the right word, that right moment in the script or whatever. And obviously from talking like that, I'm a scripter. I have a script for each routine, and I love thinking about the words and changing it and trying different things and stuff like that. But regardless, you're communicating something. Why not look for ways to take advantage of that and really use that? And then not only that, but then what do I actually want to communicate? Not just how can I communicate powerfully, but and seize the moment there that's just naturally there. But what do I, Eric Richardson, want to communicate when I'm performing? And, you know, the answer for that's different for everybody, you know. So I had to go on a little bit of a journey. I'm not even saying I'm done with that journey. I don't want to make it sound like I've completed it. I don't think we're ever, because we change too as we, you know, when I started performing when I was 13, what I would have wanted to communicate then is very different than me as a 53-year-old, right? So, you know,
back
that
then it was
changes.
just like, sweet, I get free pizza. Let's go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that was a nice thing about working in the restaurants. I worked in Pizza Huts when I was in college, and I got paid from the cash register and a pizza, and I always walked out with a pizza at the end of the night. That was part of my deal. So in college, that was pretty epic, you know. Like, they're feeding me. This is great. I got money and food. I'm set. Now, for a while, unfortunately, they had a promo going for about a year or something. For one of the years I was working at this, it was back in the 90s. And I had to dress like a mad scientist with a lab coat and a white wig, like some kind of crazy Einstein wig. Oh, that was a long
That's a long year.
promotional thing. Yeah. That's the only time they ever I ever had to do anything like that, but they just thought, the manager thought that was just the best. He's like, we're doing this thing and you can dress like a mad scientist and do your magic. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And it worked and it was fine, but I hated wearing that wig for 2 hours straight in a Pizza Hut, But hey, you get it at the end of the night, you put the wig away and you got that nice pepperoni pizza and you're like,
It's
it was worth it. It was worth it.
Exactly.
It was worth it. But anyway, so yeah, like what are you going to communicate? And that goes then to the question of who are you and what are you about and what do you care about and what parts of that do you want to express in what you're performing? And then how do you do that and still be, commercially viable and not, there's places for story routines, but you can't go into a restaurant, do, table to table and spend a 5-minute, story routine and then another thing like that and talking about your life. And people are like, what's going on here? So
Hello?
yeah,
Why are you here?
Like, why do
what's
I
even
care?
your name?
Who are
Like,
you?
why are
Yeah.
you?
What? Right. So there's times and places and you have to know your venues and all of that. So how can you find ways, even in like a restaurant or a walk around situation where your interactions are relatively quick. It's very different than someone sitting down to watch a parlor show where you're going to now perform for an hour or 45 minutes or whatever.
Oh, for sure. But but that also boils down to what you say, right? Like the communication, like the way you communicate changes. Where you're doing a parlor show, you can do the story, but there's some things like in close up, you can ask people questions, interact with them, and still tell a story through that way.
Right.
Like, hey, do you guys feel like you're lucky? Yeah, why? And then the guy always gives the cliche answer, because I'm with her. And I go, very good, my man. Anyway.
Very good. Yes, very good. Good answer. Good answer. But so that's part of the you take your craft and you have all your tools, not just methodologically. Man, that's such a tough word. For
like prestidigitation.
Exactly. For the skills you need to make the magic happen. But then you also have the presentational skills and how do you use all of that to not just successfully create the moment of wonder that is your job as a magician, but also to do it in a way that maybe adds a little bit of you into the mix. Because I think we're all unique, we're all different. That's amazing. And I think it's personally, my view is I feel like it's very sad to watch a magician, and we all have, who does a series of tricks in a row, and at the end of those series of tricks, no matter how well they're done, they might be masterfully done, but at the end of them, you don't have any sense that they're unique in any sort of way. Like they just, it could have been any guy or lady standing up there performing a couple tricks in a row. And it just felt like, well, I watched a magician do magic stuff, and that's not horrible, obviously, but I think you're missing an opportunity is all I'm saying. I think that you're missing an opportunity to communicate something more unique, add texture, make yourself more memorable just from a self-serving commercial, marketable aspect, and then artistically, for me, I just decided, I want to try to figure out ways to communicate more interesting things than just doing the tricks and just being someone who just does trick after trick after trick. And of course, that is our job as a magician, to do that and create wonder, But it goes back to the art idea. The art, it's interesting with magic because you have an art, right? If magic is an art, then we're trying to get people to feel something and to think something. But for a magician, there's something there that you have to do. You have to make them feel something, no matter what else you do. They have to feel wonder and amazement, or you have not done your job. Magician, whether you're doing it artistically or not. But so the trick for the trick for the magician is who wants to do it in an artful way is to go, okay, I already have this thing that I have to do in my art. Whereas someone who's painting, they just walk up to that canvas and they can communicate whatever they want and try to make someone feel from interacting with that painting however they want, right? In
Yeah, but
magic, you have a restriction of you have to make them feel wonder or you aren't doing your job.
yeah, but
So,
even more said, like if you take, for example, like a movie, right? Like it's very interesting what you're saying, because like in a movie, the part of wonder is more like a tool in the director's toolbox. Okay, and so now the story is going to go to a point where you have been misdirected the whole time, and you go, "Whoa, what the?" And then that's like the
yeah,
surprise, right? But that's a
right.
tool. Supposed to work. That for us, it's sort of our
hmm
limitation. We have to
Yeah,
do that thing. Otherwise, people just look at it. They go, "I guess that was cool," but
yeah, yeah. Or you're not a very good at your job.
yeah,
You're not
exactly.
a very good magician. You know, so yeah, it's interesting. Now, other art forms have their own limitations.
Mm,
Like for a painting, limitations they don't have the ability for sound. They could put
yes.
words on it, but
Mm,
there's no there's you're missing there's a limitation there in how what they can communicate. And in dance, the same thing. Or in so every art has its unique things and parameters and things, but I think magic is a bit unique in that there is something that
mm.
you have to do. you know you
Well, in the
have to
sense of
do
like,
it.
there's a feeling that the audience needs to get, otherwise it is not magic.
Right. So then the question comes for a magician who's trying to, think about it and approach it more from an artist kind of
Uh,
perspective, I guess. Intentionally artistic perspective is, okay, I have to do wonder. I have to. Contractually,
uh,
socially, the social contract here, the archetype I am portraying in this theatrical moment is that of a magician. People understand what that should be, and so,
uh,
I have to live up to that. Maybe I can be a silly one or a crazy one or this or that, and that might be surprising to them. But if I don't hit this baseline amazement factor, then I'm not doing my job. So the trick is how can I artistically express other things in the
uh,
context of creating that wonder as well, about myself, about what I think about the world, about some idea or something that um, I think the audience would really relate to, that we can share an interest in and build a connection that way. So all of that to say, to answer your question, sorry.
I love
Um,
it.
to answer your question, that's all the back. I mean, I could answer your question, but that's the kind of thinking, that's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
coming from to get to the answers that I end up getting for like those things. So, all that to say, when I was looking at that, like the imaginary coins kind of
Uh,
idea, and there's plenty of different tricks out there like that. Um, that kind of idea. Um, for me, I had to ask, well, what do I like? That's one of the things
yeah.
I try to start with. Doesn't mean I'll end there, but it is like where, like, you don't want to, I don't want to be a performing narcissist or someone who comes across narcissistic, like
Uh,
I think it would be very foolish and boring if every trick had something to do where you're trying to reveal something else about yourself. I mean, that would be a bit
yeah, but I
in
think,
an
yeah.
overt way. But go ahead.
No, but I think like with that trick also, right? Because like for the people that don't know it, like there's this imaginary coin trick. I think, not sure if it's from Eugene Burger. I don't think it is, but
No,
Eugene
it's a
Burger popularized it. Yes.
Japanese magician, and I can't think of his name right this second. But it was published in Genie,
Uh,
um, magazine, and but Eugene taught it in his lectures, and
so, but the idea is basically Eugene Burger, he popularized it. He goes like, okay, so we have three imaginary coins here hanging here, and we got like a 50-cent piece, a €1 piece, and a €2 piece. And they would name one, and preferably, like, let's say they named the €2 piece, you go like this, and you show that you got €2 in your hand. essentially.
Right. Yeah. The
Or it could
imagination
go
becomes real.
exactly.
Yeah.
The imagination becomes
Right.
reality, and then
Right.
the version that Eric has is like he has an acorn, and he has a. Then it goes like acorn, snowflake, seashell, and that becomes real as well, whichever one they name.
Right, and I tie those in with they're not only beautiful natural objects, but they also are kind of universal symbols for places
Yes.
people would like to go. You know, so the seashell, like the
forest,
beach,
yeah.
the acorn, and then the snowflake, like the ski resort, that kind of thing. And then I asked the person if they have a place they're looking to go in the future that would kind of fit within one of those categories. Usually, I have never had anyone say no. You know, they can think of something that would fit at least broadly in one of those categories. And then that's
nature? No, fuck you. I want to stay at home.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, well, why are you here? So
nice talking to you.
Yeah, all right. And so they say the one that they would like, and that's what you produce basically, without getting into too much of the method for all of that. But because I know this isn't a method podcast,
it's beyond the method.
Beyond method. So, but the beyond part is that this idea, I took what I loved. I loved that coin effect, but for me, I really don't like coin magic. I don't like coin. I mean, not to say that there isn't beautiful coin magic out there. I mean, there is, obviously. I don't find myself gravitating towards doing a lot of coin tricks coin magic. So I ask myself, well, I really like that routine, but that's just not jiving with the whole coin thing, you know. And like, and I was like, well, what do I like? Well, I like nature. Other people like nature. What are some things? And you know, and I had picked up an acorn on that walk or whatever anyway, because I end up coming back with leaves and rocks and all kinds of stuff when I go on walks anyway. And then they had piled up around the house and stuff. Look, I got a rock right here. Anyway,
sure. Is your wife already used to this?
Yes. She knew all about it. Full disclosure, before we were married, we've been married for 29 years, so she's cool. But
it's like, where the fuck do all these rocks keep coming from?
What are you doing? So for me, like, I was like, oh, this is something that I care about and something that I like. And it is not uncommon for me. If you see me at a convention and say, empty your pockets, which would be, okay, so that would be a weird thing to ask. But if you did, and I empty my pockets, I guarantee you there'd be an acorn and a shell or a rock or something, at least one in there. I just always have stuff like that around. So, so I was like, well, I'm going to do some that, I like that stuff. So that's going to do a couple things. One, it's unique, it's different. Two, it does say something about me, because I am the kind of guy that walks around with little bits of nature in my pocket that I pick up when I'm on walks and things. So it's consistent with who I am as a person and does reveal some of my, interests without saying it. And then also it's something that people can relate to, because, especially when I start talking about places they want to go, and each one of these can symbolize that kind of thing. So now we're talking about someone's dreams about the future vacation, and it's not just about coins, And so for me, it provided all those kinds of things. And then it was a matter of working it all out to how to do all that methodologically, of course, and have it be an entertaining, and then crafting the script and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's kind of how I came up with that, with the witch one, the witch trial one in the concoction book. That one came out of a darker place for me. I had gone through some really traumatic stuff in the years prior to that, and I was exploring I have to do wonder. I have to, or I'm not doing my job.
Yes.
But how can I? But is there any other ways I can express other things? And so one of my hobbies is studying the witch trials in Europe and in America, and the history of all that. And that's been true for a long time. So I used that idea of people being treated unfairly, because like with the Salem witch trials, those people weren't witches. They were. I mean, they shouldn't have been hung, even if they were, mind you.
Yeah.
But they weren't even. They were people being slandered.
So we're gonna tie this piece
Lied
of rock
about.
around your legs, and if you
Yeah.
do
So,
drown, you're not a witch. It's like
yeah.
what?
And yeah. So, it's just one of those things where the injustices of that
Yeah.
felt. I could relate to that
Mm.
because of something that happened in my life. That was very fresh. And so
Yeah.
it was a way for me to bring something in a commercial way that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just fun and laughs and crazy, but it wasn't heavy and dark, and it wasn't some like hardcore bizarre magic type of thing,
Yeah.
but
So
it
you're
was
still
very
pointing
textured.
towards something deeper, right? While
Right.
making it
Yeah.
fun.
Right. We're talking about this idea of injustice
Mm.
in a big picture, and an injustice and how it's in the world. And how that happened in a way, but it's not like some big heavy thing where people at the end, like the whole point isn't to make people depressed, but it is to bring in a different idea, like,
It's like,
oh, the
gosh, Eric,
idea.
we don't really know what you do, man.
Yeah,
You come,
thanks.
you come here, walk around, all our customers start
Yeah,
crying all of a sudden.
crying and they don't. Yeah. so and that's not one I would ever do in the restaurants. I would. I
Yeah, of
mean,
course.
but I mean, it's still a commercial effect, but it
Mm.
has its place, and
Yeah.
that it wouldn't be a real walker, partly because you need a little bit of table space. But
Uh,
at any rate, that was another example of trying to take the idea of, okay, I have all this craft I know, and I have to do wonder,
mm.
but how do I express other things about myself, the way I see the world, things I think are important?
Mm-hmm.
Can I, and then to what extent, because you are doing something where you're performing and people aren't signing up to watch a tragedy,
Mm.
I mean, you go to a
Exactly.
drama movie, you know what you're getting into, right? Or you go to Black Hawk
Yeah.
Down, you go to watch Black Hawk Down, you know what you're getting into. You're going to watch people
Mm.
suffer and die, and it's going to be this horrible, bloody thing, right? And
Mm.
you're signing up for that. You paid money for that.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of times with magicians, we're in the contexts where we're kind of walking up to people, or they're just
Mm.
coming to see a show. They don't know what they're getting in. They don't know what they're walking into other than it's a magic show. And I do
Mm-hmm.
think you have to, be tender with that,
Be mindful
gentle
of
with
that.
that,
Yeah.
and not um, betray them or to shock them too much. And when they
Mm-hmm.
weren't buying that from you, they're hoping to have fun and see some cool magic, right?
Okay. No, but I think you make a very good point there. Like, people don't know what they're getting into when they're going to a magic show, right? Because
Very
it can be
often,
very
yeah.
different. But even if you would do walk around magic, like do tables at restaurant, then you also want to be mindful of what you're bringing to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, we're
Right.
never a nice night out to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, and it's like, so have you guys heard about all these people getting murdered?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, context is important, all of those things. And I guess one of the thing I would add as a caveat to all of this is that I don't believe there's anything wrong with just doing a magic effect that has nothing to do with you, and it's just something
Mm,
you like, or
yeah.
something you think are just going to knock them off their socks off, like
Mm,
there's nothing. I'm not trying to say, or I certainly wouldn't want people to hear me say that that everything they do should have some sort of deeper meaning, or should have some sort of
mm,
reflection on you, or somehow you're trying to communicate something with every single thing you do. I'm not trying to say that.
mm,
Because there's texture, right? I mean, in a
mm,
show, you want your texture, and some things can just be for fun. Now, having said that, your choice, I do believe that your choice of what you do for that, you should give some thought to, and is it really consistent with the image of who you are and want to portray to your audience?
mm,
Um, and there's a lot of great stuff out there that'll knock your audience for a loop, but maybe that's not the only thing to consider when adding something to your repertoire.
mm,
Maybe thinking about who you are and what you want to communicate as far as how they see you as a performer and a person. should play into that choice as well. I can give you an example of that from my own life. And that is, I've pretty much dropped in the last 5 years or so, I've pretty much dropped every Monty routine I had. And I had a couple of them in my repertoire. Even had
You're even doing
a
stage
routine.
versions, right?
Yeah, even a stage,
with the
right? You can do it
jumbo
on
cards.
stage with the jumbo cards. That's the only one I kept, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But in general, I've loved 3-card Monty from the time I first got into Magic. I mean, it might have been one of the very first things I ever saw, and probably it was one of the first things I learned. Basically, the hype move, the throw, and all of that. And it's in a lot of the beginners' books and all the things. And they're great. And I learned Darwin Ortiz's routine. He's got a great, and stuff. And I know Eugene Berger had a routine, Monty routine and stuff. But for me, as I've been on this journey of going, who do I want people to see me as? Who do I want to be as a magician? What kind of things do I want to be about? I just became more and more unhappy with Monty routines in general for me, because I just thought there's the inherent, even though you can script, I mean, I love Monty routines, and I'm not saying they can't be entertaining. This is just, for me, this is a personal artistic decision based on the magical vision I have for myself, right? So for me, I just thought, I don't like the confrontational aspect that's built into a Monty effect. It's just there. Now you can eliminate a lot of that with clever scripting and make it fun and be a jovial and not, you sucker, I beat you, that kind of thing and stuff. But still, at the end of the day, you're looking in people's eyes, you finish the Monty routine, and I just felt like I still felt a little bit like you duped me. Like, not like I'm amazed, but like you're being sneaky and you're being tricky and
Do you
you're,
think that thing inherently being a scam has something to do with that?
yes, yeah, I think it does. And I think really a Monty effect in general is not a magic effect. It's a demonstration of sleight of hand, right? And for the nefarious purpose of fleecing people of their money. So that is just a hard thing to escape with the Monty effects. I'm not saying that no one can get away with it and that audiences don't enjoy it on some level. I'm not trying to argue that. I would never argue that. But for me, I was looking at what do I want and what do I want to be about as a performer. I grew to the point I just grew unhappy with it and just thought I'm unhappy with it because this isn't who I want to be seen as a performer. I don't want to be, and I don't present myself as, hey, I'm just going to do some sleight of hands for you. Or, hey, I'm going to show you a trick. I don't use the word trick when I perform for lay people ever. I'm going to show you something amazing. Let me show you something cool. This is very mysterious, or let me show you something just incredibly magical or something like that, depending on what it is and the script and everything. But I really try to avoid references to it being a trick, because trick to me is also kind of adversarial. It's like, I'm going to trick you.
Right.
Well, that's not the mindset I want my audience in. I want them to be on my side and go, let's see something mysterious or wonderful together,
Right,
So
because trick sort of like implies like a negative relationship, right?
Right, yeah, and it also implies something that's not magical anymore. Now it's not. Now I'm not trying to convince anyone that I'm trying to really do, like, I'm doing magic. And I don't believe any modern audience believes that you are. However, I do believe that modern audiences want to pretend that they're watching a real magician. And so they suspend disbelief, are willing to, just like when they walk into a movie and they watch something, spaceships flying all over the place or whatever, and they're into that moment. It's just that theatrical agreement, that the performers and the audience have, that we're going to suspend reality and live in this moment, this theatrical moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do this thing together, and it's going to hopefully be fun and worth our time. So hopefully. So for me, I don't know, it's been a long time, and I'm not saying I'm the only one. I mean, other magicians, I'm sure, do the same thing. I'm not trying to claim that I come up with some great idea here, but I do think that for me, I did make a conscious choice some point in the past to just not use the word trick. We're going to do I'm a magician. We're going to do magic. Now, whether it's at a table or in a parlor or in someone's living room, it becomes the theater. They know I'm
Yes.
doing a
Yes.
performance, right? So at that point, we are now entering this theatrical moment, and I'm going to do magic for you because I am the magician playing the part of a magician.
Yes.
Lowercase m, uppercase m. I am the magician playing the part of the archetypal magician for you on our stage, right? So that's what people expect, right? And then they expect to see something wondrous and amazing. So
yeah, but I also feel like, you know, like you said, like people are modern audiences hopefully smart enough to realize that what they're seeing is not real magic.
Right. Yeah.
And you
I
have
think
some weird church videos of people doing, you know what?
Yeah. Well, and that brings up an interesting point that about some of the metaphors in magic, and then where's the ethical boundary. But we could talk about that if you want in a minute. But to come back to the Monty thing, so I don't leave that hanging.
Yeah.
The Monty, yeah, for me, I just wanted to eliminate those kind of adversarial types of situations or any undercurrent of that. It's just not what I wanted to be about in my performances. And so I've only kept one though, and that's Bob King's 4-card Monty, the jumbo version. But
the one.
And the reason I keep it is because I have a story for it that I think works well. So I have a script for it that works really well, and it's not adversarial with the audience. I'm telling a story about something that happened to me. All right, and then at the end, the main reason, if it didn't have this ending, I wouldn't have kept it, even with the story. But the ending is so strong and absolutely magical that at the end, the audience is like, "Oh, this was all a setup for him to do this thing. I have no idea how he did that, but this is clearly beyond just
So it's kind of like the
find
cups
the
of balls,
ace."
right?
Right. Yeah. It's not just about finding the ace. At the end, there's a whole different thing going on. And then they're like, holy cow, I don't understand anything about what I thought I was just watching. And that kind of, it takes it out of the Monty realm for me.
Yeah.
And I think from doing it for, since the, mid 90s, whenever I learned it from Bob in one of his lectures, it takes it out of that Monty realm, and it's just clearly at the end of the day, it's magic because they're just left with I have no idea,
Yeah.
and so and I don't present it as a gambling expose anyway, but still, that's the only one I kept because I was able to manage it and script it in a way, and with the climax that I could go, no, this is still something that I'm comfortable with. It fits within the world I'm trying to create theatrically.
Do you also do the trick without jumbo cards? Like, have you done it with normal cards?
Yeah, I do. I often have it in
Is the response different to it if you do it like this?
No, it's not different.
Okay.
Now, it's only different in the sense that when I'm doing it with just regular size playing cards, that I'm usually doing it for just 2 or 3 people. Whereas when I'm doing it in a parlor, it might be 50 people or 100 people or something. And you could do it on a bigger stage than that even. That just gets this huge gasp, and from this huge swath of people. So it has a different vibe to it that way because, but the effect is the same. I use the exact same script. Everything about it's the same. The handling's the same, for the most part. So
no, because I was thinking maybe because like if they're jumbo cards as opposed to regular size playing cards, like maybe that also moves the idea away that it's like a scam, right? Because like in the Monty scam, they would never use gigantic cards,
right?
Because they're impossible to handle.
Right. So and that I play that up in the script at some point. It's like, it's not like this was with regular cards. And several people laugh because they're like, yeah, I mean, like all of their methods that they could think of as a layperson is somehow you're hiding it in your hand or something, right?
Yeah,
and
like, good luck.
and it's like, clearly that's not going to happen when it's like 3 times the size of your hand. So so yeah, I mean, the whole thing has much more of a magical vibe, and I think probably I would say that I think that does matter. Which is, I agree. I think the bigger the cards are like that, it does add an element to it that the smaller one doesn't have. But anyway, yeah. So that's just an example of, for me, going, I love Monty routines and I have a soft place in my heart for them, but artistically, trying to answer the questions of, who am I as a performer? Who do I want them to see? What do I want to achieve artistically in my performances? What is that all about? Okay, well, that just doesn't fit. I love it to death, and they get good reactions, but it's just, I'm going to have to say no to it. It's just not really working for me. And just to keep going down your path, and just have the ability to say no to things. It takes a little bit of, I don't want to say courage, because that makes it sound like, like, maybe that's over. But at the same time, sometimes you're like, I'm going to leave that out. I think I'm going to say goodbye to that, but I don't know exactly what's going to replace it. And as a performer,
in some way, it's a bit of
can
courage.
be, yeah, it takes a little bit, because you're stepping into an unknown. And you're having trust and faith in yourself that you can find something creatively and fill that space with something that's more in line. And you may not know what that is. And I know this from my own personal experience. You get that next call for the next gig. You've made this wonderful artistic decision, right? Oh, I'm going to drop that. I'm not going to put that in because that's not part of my magical vision anymore. Ring. Hey, we'd like you to come down here on Friday night and do 3 hours, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I think I need that thing back in my set, Maybe I don't want to get rid of it yet, And so some point you got to pull the string on that and say, no, I'm really going to leave it out. I'm going to be committed to my magical vision for myself, my artistic vision. And I'm going to say no to that, but it's hard to do, because if you got good reactions and you perform it well, it's easy to keep it, it's easier
and
to
it's
keep
safe because you've been doing it for a while. So when you go up to a table, it's not like, it's not like I really feel like, especially with walk around, like I have it less on stage, especially walk around. Like, if you are feeling a little bit uncomfortable that day and you're going to go to a table and you feel the slightest discomfort in your body, I tend to fall back on things I've been doing for a very long time, and I know for sure are going to get great reactions.
Yeah.
So now imagine the fear of having that, going to a table and being like, I just threw away all the shit that works.
I'll add 2 caveats to my what I just said. One, there's still I'm just a complete pragmatist.
Yeah.
Okay, you do have to, plan this stuff out. Like, I have artistic vision for my magic, and nothing I do now is going to work. So I'm throwing it all away. Even though it gets great reaction, I'm just walking away from it. I'm living my art, baby. That's crazy. That's stupid, right? I mean, from a commercial, like, I actually want to get paid and perform, and, incrementally, okay, I have 3 things that I think I ultimately want to walk away from, but I've got, 12 gigs coming up. And I don't have time to figure all that out. That takes a long time. And who knows how long that'll take. Sometimes it takes years, So to find what really works and artistically and to make it work for you and all this stuff, it's a journey, right? So you're like, okay, well, maybe there's one thing like that I think I can. But, in general, I try not to throw stuff out until I think I have something else, that can replace it, But at the same time, my point was just simply that it does take a little bit of courage to follow your artistic vision off into the unknown, instead of just falling back on routines and a repertoire that you had that was, serviceable and good, but it wasn't necessarily in line with that. And so it's hard to leave it behind, so
For
that
sure.
takes some, effort and some thought and maybe a little bit of courage. But at the same time, there's smart ways to do that and maybe more foolish ways to do that. And I can't answer, that answer is going to be different for everybody, but none of this has to happen overnight, right? I mean, like for me, it's an artistic journey. It's one that you're asking questions as you go and you're finding the answers as you go, and you try things and you're like, well, no, but I like this about that, but not this. And, you don't do that to your whole repertoire at once. That would be crazy. You start working these things in a little bit, and over time,
Yes.
the reality of what you're doing and your artistic vision can start to come together in a more concrete way, but it's a process. It's not, it's not a quick for me, at least. It was not a quick process, and I'm not even done with it. But like I've been dismantling slowly my entire repertoire and rebuilding it into this vision that I think for myself, and that's a incremental process. It's not
And it's also a
overnight.
beautiful thing because you can slowly see also with your repertoire that's changing that you are changing as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think what it does is it makes you go, well, I mean, I've always loved the performing, but like I love it even more because I feel like I'm not just a magic monkey doing magic tricks like everyone else. You can buy a bunch of stuff online and learn
Go
some
Magic Boy
downloads.
perform. Go.
Yeah, you can go learn your bunch of, some stuff off some downloads and watch some stuff on YouTube, learn some tricks, hopefully practice them and get some good presentations for them and really fool, people and amaze people, even with wonder and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're just picking tricks out of a box and doing stuff. And once again, like you can choose to do that. I'm not ragging on magicians who do that. Right. We've all done it.
It's a good way to learn as well.
Yeah. And you can do that for a career. You can make a career out of doing that and entertain audiences, and do all that. But I just would like it to be intentional. Like if you're deciding, every time I stand up in front of people, I'm communicating something. And what I want to communicate to them is I'm just this crazy fun guy or lady who is doing magic and I just do crazy stuff. And here's one crazy thing, and here's another crazy thing, and then here's another crazy thing. If you're intentional, if that's what you've decided intentionally, and that's who you're going to be as a performer, then I say more power to you. Great. And, you probably have a great career doing that. And if that's your artistic vision and that's who you want to be seen as, then there's nothing wrong with that. That is legit. It is.
And I mean, in some way, if you just really like doing magic, but there's no deeper layer that it needs to have for you, but you just really like doing tricks, then that's also saying something about yourself. You're automatically expressing yourself.
You are. Right. And as long as it's intentional, what I fear, and I know this, especially when I started in magic, I was just doing the tricks that I thought were cool because they were cool. Like, oh, that's cool. I'll do that. And
it's a great thing.
Yeah, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there was no intention behind it. And it was just like my decision wasn't to be the guy who just does tricks and this is how I'm going to do that. And then if it is your decision that I'm just going to be the man or woman that just shows these tricks, and just one after another, and I'm just a crazy fun guy or lady that does tricks, you still can go, but how can I do that the best way? If that's my story, if that's my artistic vision, how can I express that in the best way possible to get the most mileage out of it theatrically? So, it's just, for me, it's just a question of intention and thinking through, it's open. It's everyone can find their own way to express themselves with magic artistically, but I think that it doesn't just happen. You have to have some sort of intentionality to it to really get the most out of
Yes.
it, you know? And
Yes.
so
So I
that's
kind
all
of
I wanted
have
to
a
say
very
about
hot
that.
take on this. I'm
Yeah.
curious
All
on your
right.
thoughts.
Lay it on me.
So I do believe that in magic in any way, like lectures and workshops, one thing we put way too much value on way too early on is creativity and being original. So I think so many magicians, whenever they give a workshop or a lecture, they go like, yeah, you need to be creative or original. But as we have discussed so far, or like what I see shining through you is that you say like, well, you have craft and art, and sort of to get through the art, you need to master the craft. And then that can be your vehicle of expression to get to the art. Whereas many people sort of nowadays, they go like, okay, so I can do a double lift and I can do a shuffle, but I don't know any other moves with the deck of cards or with magic. But now I have to learn how to creatively express myself with the script and do all these things. I'm like, dude, you don't even know yet how to do magic. First, learn how to do proper magic. And then I fully agree that then you should start focusing on who am I? What do I want to express? Where do I want to go? But since this has been such a big voice for big people, and I get that, that's the thing that makes you unique. And probably for many of them, that one thing that broke their career from being a magician that does stuff that everyone else does to being a personality where people go, oh no, we want Eric. We want Eric at our party. We don't just want a magician. We want him to be there. But everyone I see around me is like, no, I need to be creative. I need to focus on this. And I'm like, no, fuck that. Learn magic first, then be creative.
Yeah, well, I would agree. I mean, and being, I can share my own experience with this because, and maybe people can relate to it. But you know, like I started magic when I was like 13, 14, something like that, and like a lot of people, I guess. But for me, I did want to be creative from the beginning. I was already into art. I've always been into art. I like whatever I do, I want to be creative. But yeah, it was a struggle at first to be creative when I didn't have the craft,
Yeah.
right? And I tried I even have some of the write-ups of some of the stuff I came up with at the time. It will never see the light of day. I probably should burn it to make sure it never does. Um, but you know, I had some
Eric
horrible
passes
stuff.
away, loved ones decide to publish it.
Yes, no, haunt them forever. So, no, that'd be horrible. So I do need to just like have a bonfire one day. But anyway, yeah, I was trying to be creative and like invent my own tricks and all this kind of stuff, but it was too early. You know, I didn't know enough about the craft. I needed to learn so much more methodologically, and then also you know how do you present magic, what makes something a good trick, having some discernment over that, you know. um and that took me a while uh to have more discernment over that, partly because I had some really bad examples of magic when I was younger. I mean, one of the first times I ever had the sponge ball trick done to me was done by some older gentleman who did the sponge ball penis trick in my hand.
Yeah, the sponge down. Okay.
And that's just horrible. And now I look
Yes.
back on it and go, what was that guy? That's just like messed
What
up.
was he thinking?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to know.
The sad
That's
thing
weird.
actually is that thing is it got remade, and according to a buddy man that has a magic shop, it's one of the best selling items he has.
Oh gosh.
He's
So
making a comeback,
anyway,
Eric.
yeah, no, that's not good. That's not good. Anyway, so for me, you know, I had, you know, seeing good magic was a little bit harder back then. This was in the before times, right? Before the internet, before all that stuff. So, and so,
The good old
yeah, like,
days.
yeah, in the good old days, you know, back in my time. So, uh, so I just, you know, you didn't have access to seeing so much good magic as we do today. I mean, you can watch. I mean, Penn and Teller's Fool Us, and you know, just one
Yeah.
example. And that, of course, you know, some of the stuff on YouTube is really good, and some of it's not so much. But anyway, you know, but back then I didn't, and so it took a little bit longer to maybe figure out what good magic really was. And I saw some really great examples, but not always. And stuff. So anyway, methodologically and presentationally and all that kind of stuff, it takes a while to get your toolbox full, or at least full enough of all that, and some performing experience under your belt. And then I think at that point, it's a lot easier to be creative and have your creative energies produce something worthwhile. At first,
Yeah.
you're trying to run and you don't know how to walk. It's gonna be ugly. It's not gonna work. So yeah, I agree. I think there's stages to things, but having said that, I would never discourage someone who's just getting into
Oh
magic
no,
to not think about or being creative
of
or
course.
trying things out and thinking outside the box and
Mm.
wondering about those things and presentational angles and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why mentors are good if you're
Yes.
fortunate enough to have a mentor, because they can help steer you through that kind of thinking and move you faster through some of that, you know.
And they can help you with the balance as well, because like what you
Right.
say is valid, right? Like you need to be able to have proper presentation for people to enjoy it and to be nice. But like there needs to be a balance there as well, where it's like, okay, I'm still learning technical things and secrets and methods, and I'm getting better at all my basic sleight of hand. But I'm also
Yeah.
working on these presentations and how I would, because in the end that's part of the craft as well. Like how do I
Right.
speak to people? How do I present?
Right.
But
Right.
to throw away completely one side of this, which is like I'm only going to be a technician, or I'm only going to present magic and I'm just going to do self-working stuff. I feel both of them, like if that's what you want to do, by the way, fine, go ahead. But in the end, like a holistically viewing magic, like that seems empty on both sides.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I think, it's one of those things where there's no hard and fast rules on a lot of these things, and people are different, and people
Yeah.
progress at different level at stages based on all kinds of things in their life. Whether they have someone who's a mentor, they might know a professional magician who's done it for 50 years. Who knows? Then there's people like me who started with a public library, the books in a library. And well, that's great, but it's not a mentor. It's not someone who's going, "Hey, let's talk about this." But it was a longer, more drawn out, less efficient process. But it's
Yes.
fine. It's the way it was. Whatever. But yeah. So it can be different for different people, and people's answers are going to be different on all these things. I think. But for me, this is how I've approached it and seen good results for myself. Creatively and artistically and things like that. So, so these are the answers that I've come to personally.
Like one interesting thing that like I sort of realized from like you were saying, okay, so whenever you're standing in front of an audience doing magic, you're communicating something, right? Which like we could even flip that to be like whenever you're in front of people, you're communicating something, be that verbally or inverbally. Even when you're listening and when you're not talking, you're still communicating something back.
Yeah.
Because we look for those cues, right? Like we always will look at someone and then like if we're about to say something crazy, like we might dip our toe a bit in the water by saying something a bit crazy to see their response, to go like, are they gonna think I'm nuts or I'm a wacko? And like, okay, they don't. Okay, great. So now I'm gonna say the really crazy thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're always communicating something, like even when you're just listening. But
Yeah.
the
And
interesting,
the way you dress,
yeah,
how you hold your body, all those things. Yeah. Sorry.
and
Go
the
ahead.
no, but like the interesting thing that hit me then was like, so when you're doing someone else's stuff and also their presentation, like now you are actually communicating something from someone else. So rather than
Yeah.
taking that opportunity to communicating your own world and your own ideas and things, now you chose to use that moment to communicate something from someone else.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think, a lot of magicians I've read, have pointed that out, that some point in there, I think Eugene Berger is one that just comes to mind, but I know I've read other magicians who are professional performers, say that basically the same thing, is that, they've gone through different phases, or they went through their Don Allen phase, where everything they kind of did was like Don Allen. And of course that legacy continues today because a lot of people still perform the invisible deck the way he made popular, and or
And
the
people
chalk
don't
cup
realize that
routine.
invisible deck is a presentation,
Right. Yeah. All that. So, and I know he didn't come up with that whole presentation, but he certainly popularized all stuff. And, and like just that general demeanor he held and the way he presented his magic and came across was widely copied,
Yes.
And I think there's, plenty of reasons for that. One is a very commercial kind of presentational style. I mean,
Yeah.
clearly it was successful for him. But even like Eugene Berger talked about how he kind of went through some of these phases. And I think it's very normal. And I don't think that's, like for a new magician, I don't think that that's all bad, because you got to, as long as you don't stay in it and you're just like, you're trying stuff out. You don't know,
Oh, for
and
sure.
and on top of that, a lot of people start off when they're pretty young and they don't know anyway. I mean, they just like
Yeah.
they're changing so rapidly. It's just a very turbulent time of life, and internally, just psychologically, all those things, and so they're developmentally and all of that. So it's okay to try out these different things, but at some point, you have to go, like you said. I don't want to just be performing like this. I perform this trick like Don Allen. I perform this trick like Eugene Berger. I perform this
Yes.
trick like, like Boris Wilde, and, even in French, which is amazing because I don't even know French. And then whatever. And whatever, you don't want, in the end, hopefully people decide, I don't want to be that, at least on a
Yeah.
base level. I don't want to be that person. I want to be someone who has a consistent performing vibe, if you will, and has something that's more related to themselves,
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's something that it's sort of like it's being shunned a lot to do something exactly like someone else. So, like, not just do the slides that Eugene Berger does, but also use the exact same presentation.
Yeah.
Although I have a very unpopular opinion about this, I guess, which is I think if you're beginning a magic, that's great. Do it exactly like that person. Use every single slide in that way. You say every single word practically the same, maybe how you would say them. You're not being original, but you're learning a great deal. You're learning about the sleight of hands, but you're also learning, oh, he makes this joke in this moment to divert attention from here.
Right.
He does this in that moment to do this. Oh, this line works well in this moment because now he's like summarizing what just happened so that the response will actually be bigger. But he's also summarizing it very specifically, where he's leaving out little details that elevate the effect even more.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of craft. That's part of the craft of it. You're learning how to present stuff. And, and in the other artistic disciplines, you see the same thing, right? Like you see in painting, people copy great painters and try to duplicate that because they're trying to learn something about painting from a past master, or in acting, or in dance, or in any artistic field. You see that, in music. Well, I'm gonna play all the classics and learn them, and even perform them for other people, and all that. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think for me it always comes back to, great, do that, but you have to ask yourself, is that where I want to stay?
Yeah.
And maybe if your answer is yes, then there's no one's going to come and arrest you. Do what you want. I mean, whatever. There's no, you can do that and even make a career out of it, and you can do that. But my hope, my artistic hope for the magic world and for our art communally, is that people at least have some intentionality about it and go, why am I making the decisions I'm making? Am I making ones that I think are really good decisions, or am I just going about this random haphazard with no thought at all? Really, that to me is a waste, because you're missing because I think you're missing opportunities. You're missing opportunities to show people more and to connect with your audience in better ways, and to make yourself more unique and stand out in a very crowded field of performers, and things like that. So that intentionality, those thoughts, asking those questions is, I think, good for people. It's going to help you be a better performer because you'll have thought through, why am I doing these things? What's going on and all of that. So, and I think that leads to being more creative because you're asking questions that lead to creative thinking or to find, new avenues to explore, But I would say this to people who are thinking about creativity. A really good thing that Eugene Berger put out a long time ago, was a series of tapes. But now it's on. You can get it from, what's this thing doing? Device storage is running low. Are you seeing that on your side?
Yeah, I'm seeing
Is it okay?
It's all right.
That's all right. I'll just ignore it.
We're nearing
All right.
the end, so.
All right. So I'd recommend people checking out "Growing in the Art of Magic" by Eugene Berger. It is available at theoryandartofmagic.com. His Eugene Berger's final book, called Final Secrets, has the entire write-up of all of that, but it was originally on cassette tapes. And so you can get that. You can actually listen to Eugene deliver all of those. And you can get that at magicalwisdom.com. That's Jeff McBride's website, for like $13. And it's called "Growing in the Art of Magic." And you get all the files, MP4 files or whatever it is, for that. And Eugene covers all kinds of stuff, but he has one on solitude and creativity and things like that, which is really worth listening to if you're interested in becoming a more creative magician. I think it's a good resource. You can read it or listen to it. So it's out there.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for doing this and for being here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
It was fun. And when your device has more storage, we should continue this talk.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
All right, man.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye-bye.